Chat, the darkest moments in TV history
has really shaken up this Monk's Corner neighborhood. One resident.
The following video contains scenes that may be upsetting or distressing for some. Topics include murder, child abuse, and death. Viewer discretion is advised. Dark moments in TV history.
Said she was too worried about her children to come out and talk with us. And Sheriff MC Cannon says right now he can't offer much comfort.
It was March 3rd, 1989, in Berkeley County, South Carolina. 5-year-old Justin Turner leaves his home in the early morning, heading in the direction of his bus stop, where he was set to meet his neighbors.
Clint, Kais, and that is live. Yo, we're not doing this. Like, I need you guys to lock in.
His stepmother, Megan Turner, who usually accompanied him, had been busy in the shower, while his father, Victor Turner, was off at work, leaving Justin to make this short walk alone. Later on, Megan would wait for the same bus to arrive at the end of the day, only when it did, Justin never got off. In fact, according to the bus driver and the neighbors, he never even made it on the bus in the first place. That night, Justin Turner was reported missing, and the search to find him was underway immediately. It was the third day of the search, March 5th, 1989, that yielded its biggest turnout, with volunteers from the community banding together with law.
Turn on subtitles so you don't understand a single word he's saying. Like, you guys are
enforcement to help find the young boy, with the group being accompanied by a camera crew from the local Channel 2 station, as everyone shared the same hope that the child would finally be found. And so they were off, with many searchers directing their focus on the nearby woods, while others, including Justin's own family, would search closer to the property as well as its neighboring land. This included rummaging around various sheds and piles of trash, as they were made to leave no stone unturned that day, with everyone geared up for a long, grueling day of searching. Though in the end, all they needed was a few minutes.
Something's in there.
Nathan, that's
No camera, no camera. Where is he at? Where is he at?
in there.
With the cameras rolling, we see the moment that Victor Turner discovered his own son, stuffed inside an old cabinet in his own camper, with his reaction making one thing very apparent. Justin was no longer alive. The footage is devastating and made worse upon the discovery that not only was Justin dead, but he had been brutally assaulted and murdered by strangulation. But there was something even more unsettling about this footage. The fact that that very camper had already been searched in the days prior, and likely numerous times, yet somehow Justin's body was never found, meaning that whoever the killer was may have hidden him there days after the disappearance.
The latest word about the boy's grim fate has really shaken up this Monk's Corner neighborhood.
They were clearly dealing with an incredibly dangerous and deranged individual, and tracking down whoever was responsible became law enforcement in the area's top priority.
So, no, let me get this straight, right? I'm not going to pause that much, but they said that he never made it on the bus. So where was the parents to not know that he wasn't going to school? Like, I don't know how people live, but like, bro, when I used to go to school when I was a kid, my mom made sure, like, we were going to school. Probably work. But don't you usually, you make sure your kids are on the way to school before you go to work, no? One of them had to do it. That only makes sense. Maybe it's the parents that did that, right?
This certainly didn't mean that results were guaranteed, as there was a severe lack of physical evidence.
American kids take the bus, I think that's even worse then. Because then it's like, bro, there's an actual proof of you watching your kids get on a bus. How did you know your kid isn't getting on that bus?
Found on the scene, making it incredibly difficult to find any definitive information as to who might have done this. And despite their best efforts,
3, 2, 1, Happy New Year!
A full year passed.
It's 1991.
And then 2, and then 3.
Happy 2000!
Then a full decade passed. Then 2, and then 3. From the start, Justin Turner's case was ice cold, and in the end, it seemed clear that it would remain this way forever. Until...
Breaking news this afternoon out of Berkeley County, as the Berkeley County Sheriff's Office has made 2 arrests.
30 years is crazy. So nobody found out what happened to this kid for 30 years.
arrests in the Justin Turner case.
The Berkeley County Sheriff's Office confirms that yesterday they arrested Justin's father, Victor Lee Turner, and his stepmother, Megan Renee Turner, in the upstate, both charged with murder.
35 long years after Justin Turner's body was discovered, it would be the very man who found him that was charged for his murder, along with his wife and Justin's stepmother.
Oh, hell no.
This supposedly came as a result of improved forensic technology, as well as other information that had previously...
Now it makes sense. Now it makes sense. They killed him. Now that answered my question earlier. How did they not know he got on the bus? The parents must have went work. The parents ended him. So that's what happened. R.I.P. Justin, bro. Damn.
Been unreported, like one account where his stepmother Megan had been overheard talking about how she and Justin had gotten into a fight that very morning, with the woman eventually laughing about it and saying, "But I won that fight." From the very beginning, Megan was always considered a suspect in this case. In fact, she had even already been arrested for his death at one point in 1990, but was swiftly released on account of a lack of physical evidence. And this lack of physical evidence is still a factor to this day, as the recent arrest of this couple hinged mainly on circumstantial evidence, with one of the key pieces being that news footage. Investigators pointed out a number of strange moments in Victor's behaviors and actions that day when they went back and reviewed the recording, with the most glaring being that he had found his son literally seconds into the search, entering that camper and going right for the drawer that he was hidden in, almost as if he knew where to look. And given that he owned the property and he owned the camper...
Yo, I'm gonna be real, bro. Some people just don't, like... Why do... Like, chat, bro, why do niggas have kids if you're just gonna do some up like shit like this? What is the point? I will never understand that. What is the point? Like, don't have kids. You need to just start using condoms or something. Because, like, some of these people, they be having kids to just do what? Why are you parents? Like, you're better off just giving them up for adoption if you're going to do some fuck shit like that. I mean, they lived in trailers, so it makes sense. Them trailer niggas, they be on some bullshit. Probably your sister. It's probably inbred.
It makes more
chill
sense as to how Justin's body could have seemingly just appeared there, as he and his wife were the ones who had the easiest access to it. On top of this, upon finding Justin, Victor didn't rush in to check on his condition, and he seemed to just assume he was dead despite only getting a quick glance. He didn't rush to hold him, he didn't yell out to him, he just backed away and told those around him that he had found his son. Shortly after, it's alleged that Victor asked the detective on the scene what would happen if a family member had done this, with this question supposedly being posed before it was even revealed that Justin had been murdered. The sheriff on the case later proclaimed about the footage, "You look at it, you look at the actions, you look at the body language. I'll let the people draw their own conclusion." On top of this, the same sheriff also recalled that right after the body was found, Victor and Megan basically refused to ever speak to detectives again, and they never once called in to check on the case for the entire 35 years, with the sheriff saying, "Nobody that I'm aware of from any of the family has ever heard from them again. I never got one phone call, not one phone call from his daddy or stepmother."
Wait, am I tripping? Did they say why the they killed him? Like, did they even mention it? Or did I miss it?
"What are y'all doing about my son's death?" Not one. What does that tell you? Watching the moments that Victor found his son's body, now knowing the context, disturbing doesn't even begin to describe it. And the fact that it took 35 years for this couple to finally be placed behind bars is baffling. But things were about to get a whole lot more shocking.
They got to live free for 35
hearing,
years.
we requested that the charges against Megan and Vic be dismissed. We were very fortunate today that we got a copy of the order from the judge dismissing charges against both Megan and Vic.
As on June 7th, 2024, months after their arrest, Victor and Megan were released from prison and all charges against them were dropped, with the judge citing a lack of any new conclusive physical evidence, as well as the fact that nearly 20 people who were initially involved in the case, including witnesses and those who initially provided key testimony, had since perished, with the judge believing that it was now impossible to get the full story. On top of this, it was also discovered soon after the arrest, a notorious serial killer just so happened to be in the area on the day of Justin's murder. His name was Richard Evanitz, and though it's unknown how many victims he truly had,
so they got out.
It appears that at least 4 kidnappings and 3 slayings have been attributed to him, with some of these victims being taken in broad daylight when they were getting off the bus. Richard has long since passed away, and there's really no verifiable links to prove his involvement with this crime, with this potentially being just a strange coincidence, as it is worth noting that it seems like the rest of Justin's family still believe that Victor and Megan had killed him. But all of this left the case in a position that the judge felt was unsolvable, leaving the case.
So they got away with murdering their own kid for 35 years. What?
Without conclusion and without justice. Meaning that in this footage, we may never truly know if Victor had just discovered his son or his victim.
So they gonna let that slide? I mean, I guess.
The 3-day search is over, but not in a way anyone wanted to see.
Vivas que não recomendamos para crianças nem para pessoas sensíveis.
What the bro? Is this the next
Recently,
one?
I discovered something truly distressing. I was being double charged for Netflix, but I was paying for an old account that I didn't even realize was still active.
Oh,
for
yeah, ad. Let me guess. You're paying. Yeah, an ad. Yeah, go f yourself. Your ad.
George and his friend, the man with the yellow hat, were going on a camping trip. This is a beautiful spot to set up camp, George. George turned around and saw something scary. It was a thin trail of smoke.
There seems to be something innately interesting about survival shows. For decades, audiences have been enamored by depictions of people pushing themselves to the limit in order to survive harsh and almost inhumane conditions. Most notably, and one of the more tame examples, is Survivor, which no doubt popularized the genre, as it isn't just a staple of television in the US, but all the other countries
Oh, I've heard of this show.
that have since created their own versions of the show. In France, the show is called Koh Lanta and was created back in 2001 by the company Adventureline Productions, or ALP for short. And by the year 2015, the show was one of the most popular in its market.
Isn't this show just like I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here? To all my UK viewers, I don't know if they have that in America, but it's basically they get celebrities and they basically put them in a jungle in like Australia. Isn't that basically what that is? Yeah? Yes? Yeah. Okay.
Having seen 13 successful seasons. And so, riding the high of this impressive feat, ALP decided to try their hand at a new show, one that was far more daring.
Hur fasen ska detta gå?
What was that? So basically death. What? No food, no map, nothing, death. So basically you're going in there to die.
The show was called Dropped and would follow 2 teams of 4 contestants who would be blindfolded and dropped into an undisclosed location each week via helicopter, with each team having the same mission: make it to civilization, charge a phone, and make a rescue call. And the first team to do so would win, while the losing party would have to vote one member off.
Chat, I'm not gonna lie, I would have survived this shit. I would have came out on top. You know what I'm saying? I would be the nigga hunting, getting all the food, getting all the bitches around me. They all f with me. They would have been like, oh my god, Miniklin, you so him. That's me, bro. Stop putting the cat looking sideways.
It was a fairly interesting idea, but it also already had a proof of concept, as there was actually an identical show being made in Sweden at the time that was already well received. Though Dropped wanted to turn up the interest even more, and that's exactly what they did when they announced that the cast would be composed solely of famous athletes, most of whom turned out to be French Olympians who were already well beloved in the country. It had all the makings of a certain success, though in the end, this show would never actually make it to television, with the showrunners proclaiming that the program would not see the light of day. And this was all thanks to the events of March 9th, 2015.
The f happened on March 9th?
It was the start of their second episode. The first had seen the elimination of professional footballer Sylvian Wiltord after his team failed to make it out of the wilderness first, which left 7 contestants who were now ready for round 2. The day's shoot began in La Rioja, Argentina, with the cast being blindfolded in preparation to be loaded up into their
So they had one black guy in this entire group. Really? One black guy.
Helicopters and dropped at their next location. Olympic gold medal swimmer Alan Bernard was one of the first
He probably died first too, huh? Because let's be real, that's where this is going.
to step onto the craft, but was quickly told to exit, as his team had been the first to be dropped in the last episode, meaning that to make it fair, it was time for the other group to go first, thus giving them slightly more time. And so he stepped off the craft and
Why are you putting the blue thing? That wasn't even racist.
waited with his group, as the other team instead loaded in. There were 2 helicopters on the scene. One was set to carry 3 contestants, Florence Attu, Samil Mouffe,
They come to the line, and Mouffe touches and just gets there.
and Alexis Vastine, along with a crew member and 1 pilot. Meanwhile, the other craft was strictly for the crew, holding 4 production workers as well as a single pilot, with Alan Bernard and his group staying on the ground with their backs turned to the craft, as they eagerly anticipated the return of those helicopters to then take them. And so, with their blindfolds on in the pitch darkness, the team listened as they heard the sounds of the crew cheering on a successful takeoff, though the cheering would be cut short by an awful sound. The sound of crushing metal.
Oh shit. The helicopter crashed, didn't it? Oh god, damn.
The aftermath was recorded on the cell phone of someone standing nearby, showing us a large group of people rushing towards a massive plume of smoke.
Holy shit, bro.
Where they would find the remains of one of the aircrafts, mangled and reduced to an unrecognizable mass of steel, with none of the contestants being able to make sense of what had just happened. It's very possible that the incident itself was captured by the production's own cameras. However, this footage has never and likely will never be released. Though coincidentally, they weren't the only ones recording. As someone watching nearby just so happened to be filming the takeoff of these 2 crafts, showing us the reality of what had just transpired.
Yo!
Just as the 2 aircrafts had taken to the sky, the second and lowest helicopter began rapidly ascending, with the pilot seemingly failing to realize that the other craft was directly above them.
So if this nigga here wasn't filming this, no one would have knew what the happened. Yo.
Causing the 2 to collide, and then plummet to the ground below. In the end, 10 people went into the sky, and none made it down alive.
Damn. R.I.P. bro.
The footage makes little sense even today. The weather was perfect, the crafts were some of the best in the world, and both of the pilots not only had 30+ years of flying experience, but they were both flight instructors themselves. Not to mention that the show's security coordinator, who was in charge—
I'm not gonna lie, bro, I have a fear of helicopters, bro. I don't know why, bro. R.I.P. Kobe. Ever since I've seen the Kobe thing, and he died in a helicopter, and then it's this now, bro. Listen, let me tell you something, bro. That is one aircraft I really don't ever want to touch, bro. I'm being so serious. Like, planes be freaking me out, but here's the thing with planes, like helicopters, bro. I don't know what it is, but I can't. I'll walk, but bro, I can't, man. That's just, I don't know.
of facilitating the takeoff, had actually worked on the Swedish version of the show and had ample experience in this exact situation. And yet, this is how it ended. It was eventually determined that the higher helicopter was likely flying out of visual contact from the lower helicopter, and that the pilot of the ascending chopper likely just didn't realize how close they were, with reports also indicating that he may have been distracted by the actual filming process, something we've tragically seen before.
What is this?
We don't know what has just happened right there.
And because of this, it appeared that at least some pilot error was to blame. But it was ALP that was found largely responsible, with alleged serious safety oversights being discovered later on, with it appearing that this crash was the result of multiple small factors coming together to form one catastrophic accident. After the incident, Dropped was swiftly cancelled, while the team that had so narrowly avoided getting on that flight and in turn likely having perished themselves were left in complete and utter shock, forever changed by the accident, with Alan Bernard, the man that's said to have been physically on that doomed craft for a split second, later recounting that there was a life before and after Dropped, because you don't come out of such an accident unscathed. In the end, AOP was indicted on manslaughter charges and found to be an inexcusable fault for the disaster, though it doesn't really seem like they faced any sort of actual legal punishment, with the company continuing their work on other programs to this day. But one thing that I was surprised to find in my research was that AOP is actually no stranger to the world of disturbing television moments. In fact, they had experienced one just a single year before this accident.
Sus. Very sus, chat. So, something don't seem right, chat.
As mentioned previously, AOP was already quite versed in the world of survival television, as they had run 13 successful seasons of Koh Lanta. Though what I failed to mention is that the company had actually produced 14 seasons, or at least they attempted to. It was season 13, during the very first day of filming, when contestant Jara Baban collapsed after the show's second
Of course the guy's black, bruh. Oh, of course the guy is black, bruh.
challenge, with the show continuing to film as if nothing happened. Anonymous reports from the set claim that once on the ground, it took the medical team nearly 5 minutes before intervening, as to not interrupt their recording, and once they eventually did tend to him, he became more alert and complained of having severe cramps. But the show's primary doctor, Terry Costa, didn't—
Why are you putting the blue thing? That's not even a blue emote. You guys just put in emotes that don't make any sense. L racism. That is not. How is that racist? Chat. If I was being, first of all, you're using the emote wrong. Okay, you put the come on, bruh. That was, you put the come on, bruh. You're supposed to put the blue guy when I say something that's like out of order. You're not even using emotes right. Weak ass chat. L chat. Shitty ass chat.
Didn't believe that his ailments required an emergency airlift, as this would have cost the production company far too much money, especially on the first day of filming. Instead, Jara was diagnosed with dehydration and was brought back to their makeshift infirmary, where he would lay for nearly 2 full hours until he was finally taken away by a proper medical team. On his way off the island, Jara Baban would pass away from cardiac arrest at the age of just 25. Cardiac arrest that was completely missed by the show's doctors. The testimony from those on the scene painted AOP and Dr. Costa in an extremely negative light, as their inability to act quickly and recognize the ailments of Baban likely contributed to the young man losing his life, with some claiming that the doctor and the showrunners were far more interested in keeping the production running smoothly than actually caring for the young man. And though AOP denied any wrongdoing,
the one black guy is so happily misdiagnosed. Sus.
Season would essentially be cancelled right there on the spot. But disturbingly, despite the filming lasting only 1 day, Baban's death wasn't the only tragedy to occur as a result. Due to intense public ridicule,
French reality TV doctor kills himself after contestant dies. Okay, now this is getting really dark. Where is this going?
Terry Costa would end his life just days later.
Kai Cenat would have saved him.
Stating that all the negative news reports about him were wrong, and that they had sullied his good name, writing in a final note, "I'm sure that I treated Jara in a respectable manner, as a patient and not as a contestant," adding, "having to reconstruct this destroyed reputation would be unbearable," before ending his letter with a message to those on the shoot that had spoken out against him. The author of the anonymous comments about the circumstances of Jara Baban's death, and those who spread them, will have to face their conscience. In the end, Koh Lanta would return a year later and has been going strong ever since, as AOP did not appear to face any serious repercussions for the incidents that
I ain't gonna lie, bro. Your show. If I see your show is getting, like, every time your show happens, someone is dying, why the would I be a part of that show? Like, your show. I don't care how much money you offer me. Nigga, who's getting back on that show? What? They still up running? What the
fired under their watch, with their fault in both cases being debated to this day.
I mean, they just said niggas is still on the road. What is this?
Emergência 911, a vida como ela é na tela do SBT.
What language is that? Okay, that was.
It's July 5th, 1993,
video
in
so
downtown Sao Paulo, Brazil. A doorman working at a busy office building looks up to the sky and notices...
Yo, I can't with this chat. Are you just gonna put the blue thing anytime I say anything? Racist. That's racist. Racist, capital D colon. Like, I can't. Colon, or whatever the fuck you want to...
A woman sitting on top of the structure, her legs dangling 7 stories above the pavement below. One wrong move away from certain death. Precisely what she wanted.
Oh.
The man calls the police immediately, though surprisingly, they wouldn't be the first on the scene, and instead, they were beaten by a camera crew. The group is from the show Aqui Agora, a news program from the network SBT that had become notorious for their sensationalized and shocking stories. In their history, they had captured live footage of police riots, kidnappings, and even murders, which they would then broadcast on air as part of their show. And this unfolding situation was their
cancelled. So let me get the racist, cancelled, cat looking sideways
for the day.
Nós fomos ver o que estava acontecendo. E quando nós chegamos ao local, o corpo de bombeiros chegou, os bombeiros chegaram junto conosco. O que é um suicídio? Onde? Nós vimos junto. Um boibeiro olhou para cima, estava lá a menina, sentada no parapeito. E eu tomei um susto, a câmera olhou também, nós tomamos um susto.
What the
Her name was Daniela Alves.
Okay, that... Chat, you need to understand, I don't know why it's dark in my room, and like the way the photo was like kind of shown, it looked creepy, so it scared me. Lost aura. Are you serious? You're such a pussy. There's no way. Chat, it looked scary. It looked scary. Are you serious? Scary ass nigga. Minus 50000 aura. Bro's in aura debt. Imagine getting scared.
And at the age of just 16, she had entered that office building and climbed up to its roof with the hopes of ending her life.
Chat, lock in.
And minutes after Aqui Agora arrived, she did just that, as their cameras captured it all.
É terrível. Daqui a pouco Aqui Agora vai mostrar as imagens chocantes de uma jovem pulando para a morte. Atenção. São imagens...
Okay, I need to lock in because I don't know why I'm actually like making fun of this situation. This is serious. Okay. That's Portuguese.
As their cameras captured it all.
É terrível. Daqui a pouco Aqui Agora vai mostrar as imagens chocantes de uma jovem pulando para a morte. Atenção. São imagens exclusivas que não recomendamos para crianças nem para pessoas sensíveis.
Later that night, that footage would be packaged together into a roughly
People died lock-in blue shot guy.
10-minute segment, which the network promoted heavily throughout the day, hyping it up to be one of their most shocking episodes ever. And supposedly it was, as though it appears that the full segment is currently lost. The footage of Daniela's fall was said to have been displayed almost entirely in full, showing the moments just before and just after she had landed, where she was said to be still somewhat alive.
Wait.
It was more than shocking, and left viewers outraged that something of this nature could be shown on TV, but while showing the footage proved highly controversial.
Wait a second. So they showed her jumping? Why didn't they save her? I'm confused. Yes. Why are you putting the duck shaking his head, bruh? They recorded her death? What the
Controversial enough, it was the context surrounding the footage that made it even more depraved. As mentioned previously, police were called to the scene to assist in efforts to help Daniela Alves, yet the first to arrive was that Aqui Agora news crew. And this wasn't a coincidence. They were all about capturing events as they unfolded, and in order to be the first on the scene, they actually tapped into the police scanners, monitoring all of the calls and information being passed through officers in order to get leads on potential stories. Which is how they got word of this incident, hearing the calls and speeding over as quickly as possible. It wasn't illegal per se, but it surely wasn't ethical either. And this was only the start. After Daniela jumped, the crew that had filmed her had already captured their dramatic footage for the day. And as the officers and medical personnel dealt with the aftermath, the crew decided to turn their focus to the next element of their story: Daniela's parents. They packed up their equipment right away and headed straight for the home of Daniela's mother and father, with it being unclear how they even got that address in the first place. And there, they once again had beaten the police, who were still back at the scene trying to piece everything together.
Sus. So they were first there on the scene, and now they're the first ones at their house?
Though rather than waiting for them, the crew instead decided to take the lead, going up to the door, ringing the doorbell, and telling Daniele's parents that their daughter had just passed away.
Oh, hell no.
The crew then supposedly took the parents to the police station.
They didn't kill her? I mean, obviously they didn't. But what if you're actually listening and not putting... I don't know what you guys are doing in chat. I mean, you guys, I think you guys are watching. But I'm actually listening, okay? They camera people or whatever were the first people to see her do that. And then they were the first people to show up to their parents' address. First of all, how did they even get their parents' address? What? That's what I'm trying to like, what, huh?
Controlling them all while their cameras kept rolling, as the crying parents made for the perfect footage for their segment. Exploitative is the only word for it. But what they did next, well, that was something far more evil. Having dropped the parents off at the police station, the crew then got to work creating their segment for the night, and as part of it, they needed to find a reason as to why Daniele did this. They first theorized that this was likely due to a drug addiction which had somehow spiraled and led to her jumping, but then they decided that that just wasn't dramatic enough, and they instead shifted to a different story, one that they reported to all of their viewers as if it were a fact. They reported that Daniele Alves had ended her own life because of her abusive parents, placing the entire blame on the family that they had just supposedly helped. And there was one massive issue with this. It wasn't even true. The claim appears to have been quite literally based on nothing. It has no verifiable backing and seems to have been a complete guess. In fact, just days later, Daniele's best friend spoke out and said that Daniele had done this because of a broken heart, not because of drugs or any sort of abuse. It's sickening, as the crew cared so little about Daniele's own story that they seemingly just made up their own. And imagine for a moment being those parents, going about your day when a TV crew comes to your house and tells you that your daughter is dead. And despite consoling you, those same people then broadcast your daughter's death for the whole world to see and blame you for it.
What the No, I'm really seeing it, chat. So these guys went to her, filmed her during the incident, then went to the parents' house and said, you know what, your daughter just died. We filmed her do it. And then blame their parents that you just went and told them for the reason why she did it. What station is this? No. What is this?
Naturally, this didn't go without repercussions for Aki Agura, who had crossed the line in the most soulless way possible, and the effects were swift and powerful, as the rating soared 33%, making it more popular than ever before. The network would end up being sued by Daniele's family, who was eventually awarded $1 million as a result. But
$1 mil? Nigga, $1 mil? No, so let me get it straight. I ain't gonna lie. Chat, $1 mil. Is $1 mil enough? I'm not gonna lie. Is $1 mil enough for that bullshit? I mean, it's never enough. They lost their daughter. There's no money that can, like, you know what I'm saying, that could ever change that, obviously. But, nigga, a M? The M gonna do? Like, no offense, $1 million is a lot. But for what the you just went like they did to them? Huh?
But realistically, no amount of money could ever be enough,
that's
as
why
the show's actions permanently affected that family and destroyed their grieving process in a way that I can't even wrap my mind around. But this did little to slow down Aki Agura, as they remained on the air for 4 more long years, during which they leaned even more into these unfolding crime stories, leading to them witnessing numerous other deaths, and even being taken hostage themselves on multiple occasions. Agura would continue on air until the year 1997, when one day the show was pulled due to its declining ratings, and in its place, the network would instead begin airing The Disney Club.
Huh? So they went from filming little girls committing because they have a broken heart, then lying and blaming their parents, to now airing Disney Channel? What is going on?
You look down the track and there is a train coming toward you.
What?
What do you think would happen?
It was an exciting day for the crew of the upcoming movie Midnight Rider, the Greg Allman story. Years had been spent planning and scripting for this biographical film about Greg Allman of the Allman Brothers. And this day, February 20th, 2016, would be the day that they would finally start filming. It was nothing more than a camera test, a day in which the crew would practice filming, as well as getting acquainted to their equipment and new co-workers. But for the group of 20, the excitement in the air was palpable, as they were given access to a stunning piece of land in Nahunta, Georgia. So stunning, in fact, that the film's director, Randall Miller, just couldn't wait to begin the actual process of filming. Slicing through the property was an old railroad that had crossed over a scenic bridge raised high above the Altamaha River. The perfect location for a shot that Miller had been envisioning. It was set to be a dream sequence where Allman's character would wake up on a hospital bed in the middle of the track.
Wait! I've heard of this! I swear I've heard of this, chat. I think I've heard of this.
And see a vision of his brother.
Let me see if it's the right one.
And it was
though.
a shot that Miller just had to have. However, there was one major issue. The crew was given permission to film on the property, but not the actual railway, as this was owned by a separate company named CSX. And when Miller asked them for permission to film the shot, he was denied multiple times, as these tracks were still very active, making it far too dangerous. But being on location and seeing that bridge, Miller couldn't help himself. And so he directed his crew to set up the scene anyway, believing that they could quickly steal a shot without anyone noticing. Miller had supposedly done his research too, and discovered that only 2 trains were set to roll through the area that day, and he knew the general intervals in which they were supposed to pass. Based on this, he figured that those trains wouldn't arrive for a few hours, giving them more than enough time to film the
Wait, have I heard of this? I think this is different.
movie's very first scene. And so they quickly set everything up, rolling out a metal hospital bed and placing it towards the center of the bridge, with Miller assuring his crew that this was in fact safe, and that they had nothing to worry about, as the camera began to roll. Minutes later, the bed began to shake, and the silence around them was shattered by the sound of a whistle. Before them was an unexpected third train, heading straight for the bridge that the entire crew was now on. Miller had gotten the schedule wrong. At this point, the crew was filming a considerable distance into the bridge, but the shortest and really only route to safety was to go towards the oncoming train, and so that's precisely the route they took. And as they did so, there was little panic within the group, as rather than rushing to safety, they all seemed more focused on retrieving their equipment, believing that they had more than enough time to salvage everything. As after all, losing this expensive equipment on day one would have been devastating for the production. They likely had no idea that from the sound of that first whistle, they had just 60 seconds until the train would cross that bridge, whether they were off it or not. As they began to realize just how quickly the train was approaching, their movements became more hurried, which is where one major problem occurred.
Alright, genuine question. I don't know really about the movie they were filming, but what scene, okay, like RIP, but what scene do you need a hospital bed on a train track? I don't get the whole, like, am I tripping? I don't know.
That metal hospital bed. It was incredibly heavy on its own, and though it was designed to roll,
why didn't they just use CGI? I mean, yeah, they could have just done that too.
Its wheels kept getting caught on the tracks, and worst of all, it was set up horizontally, which essentially turned it into a barricade. And despite their best efforts to save everything, their time was up, and as the camera continued rolling, the train would arrive.
Oh my god. GG. Is this the actual footage? Oh, hell no. Oh my god.
At this moment, the train itself also had a camera rolling, which showed that even in those final moments, the crew was still trying to salvage their equipment. What happened next was a blur. Some were able to leap to safety, while others managed to jump to the side and cling onto the bridge. But there was still one thing that remained in the train's path. That hospital bed, which upon impact was torn to pieces. Pieces that were flung all over the area, striking multiple crew members and leaving many injured. But it was 27-year-old filming assistant Sarah Jones who was struck by the largest fragment, with a force so strong that it caused her to fall directly in front of the train. In total, 7 crew members were hurt but alive, while Sarah Jones had tragically been killed.
What the?
On the very first day of production, in the very first shot...
Nigga, why are they trying to save a hospital bed? Like, bro, you're making a movie, just buy another one. What type of bullshit is that? Like, nigga, what? What was their budget? Did they not have money before? You're filming a movie.
The unthinkable
just buy the equipment again.
Happened. And when it came to passing the blame, most turned their attention to Randall Miller, as he was the one who ordered the scene to be shot despite being denied permission numerous times. And this public disdain towards him only grew as he and his production company denied any responsibility, and instead, they blamed the railway company.
What?
Just 1 week after the incident, Randall Miller requested a new permit to begin filming Knight Rider once again, asking if they can begin as soon as possible. This, however, would never actually happen, as he was instead arrested and given a 1-year prison sentence for manslaughter, as well as a 10-year ban from directing any films, a mandate that he would actually go on to break, though he was swiftly forgiven, and today he continues to direct. But while it's easy to focus on the morbid nature of this case, and the man responsible for it, there was one unexpected outcome of this horrific accident. Upon her passing, Sarah Jones' parents set up a foundation called Safety for Sarah, which pushed for safer working conditions on film sets, with the movement bringing to light a number of safety concerns that were often brushed aside and ignored. And all in all, their efforts have made TV and film sets significantly safer, giving their daughter a purpose even after her death. On top of this, Sarah Jones was also honored by countless production companies across the world, as crews began writing her name on their film slates, with there ultimately being over 2,000 of these tributes for her, from some of the world's most well-known productions. But by far the biggest tribute was when she was honored at that year's Academy Awards ceremony, a stage that she always dreamed of making it to.
When you saw her name up on the screen at the Academy Awards, what were your feelings?
Overwhelming.
She made it to the Academy. She made it.
Damn, that's sad. Ah! Yo, bro, what is this, bro? Damn, chat. That's sad as bro.